right, I think we're going to make it. Here we go. Well, happy Thursday. So we're going to talk about expression language and the JSTL library tonight. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to be too helpful. Auto search is terrible. So we got to talk about Project 4. We'll talk about the midterm if you're curious. I want to look at any of those. Hopefully the questions are pretty straightforward. Just a translation of here was a different kind of question based on the same topic from that practice there. Hopefully no surprises. And then we'll also talk about our final project, introduce that. So we've got a month or so to work on it. Again, it's coming up on 12/16 if you want to look into December already. We'll do our presentations. We won't do Twitch. We'll do a little Zoom session, so anyone who's been joining remotely can hop on and do their presentation. Those are required. So if for some reason you can't make it, I'm a little confused because you didn't know this was an online optional class. So everyone should be able to make it. That's the expectation. If something serious came up, let me know. We can do an alternative presentation, but ideally everyone shows up. You get a chance to go through your final project, and it should be a lot of fun. So again, we haven't gotten to the database stuff. We'll do that next week, but you can at least start doing the frame of your project, the core bits of it. If you want to use Java, if you want to go back and use PHP, you're welcome to do that too. So whichever you prefer for that final project, it's perfectly optional. Either way is fine with me. So I'm going to talk about Project 4 first. We can fire up NetBeans and do our little recipe calculator here. Now, did we go through 404? Yeah, no problem if it's 15 seconds late. Not a problem at all. So sometimes GitHub can be a little bit weird, but that's no big deal. All right, get NetBeans going here. Should have some fun here. Adjust this. Here we go. Just waiting on NetBeans here. I finally figured out how to use the second monitor here, so hopefully this will be a little cleaner, and I can keep a better eye on chat as well. And then in case you folks aren't done yet, this is generally one of the later courses in the track, but if you have more courses to take, don't forget winter enrollment is already happening. And then when you do enroll, you'll get an email saying something about HERF grant money. Just say yes, you want it, and we'll send you already paid for money. It's not free, like everything, nothing's free, but essentially paid for by someone else money. So no additional cost to you to get some grant money here. That's pretty exciting. We can offer that to people. All right, let me close these down. Now, did we start off like a little sample here? We went through like a recipe class and an ingredient class, or am I just imagining that? Put NetBeans over here. Oh, okay, that's not too bad. The resolution, a little small, but I'm sharing the wrong screen. That's what I'm doing. I'm backwards, friends. I have the other screen on the projector. I need this one over here. What am I doing? I'm mixed up here on what I have on what screen here. Okay. No, I can't do that with the projector like I thought I could. I forgot. My OBS isn't sharing. Maybe I can capture the other screen real quick. Give me just 1 second here. Not a scene. Let me do another display capture. Second monitor. See if that works for me here. Whoa. Properties here. Display 2. Hey, look at that. Maybe I can throw this one. That's not widescreen though, is it? That's going to be a little ugly. Just make it bigger here. Nope. And stretch it. Is that really ugly if we do it that way? I'll just turn off this display capture. How's that? That might be a little prettier for what you folks see online now. Oh, no, that was too far. Too far. Huh. I'm trying here, folks. I'm sorry. There. That might be a little better. All right, so everyone in class sees the second monitor, and now everyone online hopefully sees the right stuff there. I gotta hold that in just a little bit here. Sorry, just 1 second. Nope, that was wrong. We'll try that. It's not a widescreen capture, so that's going to be a little bit ugly, but ought to work here. All right, so hopefully everyone can see NetBeans here now. Yeah, I think I set it up so it uses the other display, but it wasn't widescreen, so it got a little bit funky, but we'll try this. All right, so we're going to start a new project. We're going to do another Java web project. So, okay, NetBeans is obnoxious sometimes. It looks like it forgot how to do Java web projects. That's super weird. I wonder if I updated or something funny. Let me go ahead and reactivate that plugin. Maybe we'll get this working. There we go. All right, so we'll put this in our 2454 folder. We'll call this one Project 4. We should be off to the races. Now we'll see if it remembered Tomcat or not. Yep, Project 4. Don't need any of those frameworks. Oh, no problem. I always forget to put my phone on silent too. I've occasionally had people recognize my ringtone. And, so like some people, if you know it, you'll get it within like 2 bars, and other people have no idea what it is, so it's no big deal. All right, so we got our project here. We're gonna go open this up, right? We want to add some new classes here. So we want to add our package here. We'll call this a Project 4 package, just to make things nice and easy. Again, that default package is ugly, and we generally would like to not use it. Not that it won't work, but it's just a cleaner design idea and a good habit to get into to always use packages. So then we'll add a new Java class. Inside the Project 4 package, a new Java class. So we'll call this one our ingredient, right? Ingredient here. And then the idea with the ingredient class is it was going to have a couple attributes. It was going to have a private string for the name. It was going to have a private, probably a double, right, for the quantity, because it's not always an even number, like half a cup would be 0.5, right? And then a private string for the measure, right? And this is where we say, like, it's a cup, it's a tablespoon, it's an ounce, it's whatever here. So we've got those. And then remember, to be a Java bean, right, we need to extends serializable, right? Was that serializable? If I can spell this thing right. Serializable, no. No. Oh, implement. I'm sorry, implements. Let me implements serializable. There we go. So if we implement serializable, all that means is Java will be able to take us, and essentially it lets it form us into a nice little binary format. So if you deal with writing binary files, if you've taken object-oriented programming in Java, hopefully you've had a chance to do that. If not, don't worry about it. You'll do the same thing. So you can write the stuff to disk, not in text format, but you can write it in binary form, where you actually get the binary storage for a double, not having to convert everything to text to store it as a text-based format. And if we're serializable, we can communicate in our servlet back and forth, and it will serialize that bean, this instance of the class here, as it transfers them between the servlet and the JSP. All sorts of magic that happens behind the scenes, but not too big of a deal. So we got that. And then we need a default constructor that has no arguments. And then if you want, you can add the parameterized constructor that takes all of these to make them easier to use, so you don't need all the set methods. but we're going to let NetBeans do that work for us. We right-click and go to Insert Code. We want getters and setters for everything. Right? To be a Java bean, you need gets and sets for everything. So please let it do the work for you. You don't need to work harder, work smarter. Then we want a constructor. We want the constructor that is a no argument constructor, so we pick nothing. And then we want a constructor that, again, just for our purposes, is going to take everything to make life easier for us. Then, again, to kind of save yourself a little bit of typing here, we can make this constructor call this constructor. Hopefully you had a chance to go over this in 1500, right? You just say this, and then you give it an empty name, a 0 for quantity, and an empty string for the measure. So this default constructor we'll call the parameterized constructor with what we want the defaults to be. Don't need to do this. It's just a shortcut, so I don't need to say name equals empty, quantity equals 0, measure equals empty. This way I can write one line instead of 3 lines. Totally because I'm lazy, right? So if this makes no sense, that's not ideal. Like, hopefully you should have gone over this in 1500, but if it makes no sense, that's okay. Not too big of a deal here. At least you would have done this for sure in 2151, but hopefully you at least saw it once in 1500. Okay, so this is our bean class, this ingredient class. It will represent ingredients, and then if I want to double it or halve it, all I need to do is multiply this quantity by half or times 2 or times 3 or times 4 or a quarter, right? Everything else stays the same. Right? It's still the same ingredient, still the same measure. We just are going to take half of it or double of it, right? And then we're going to make another class here for our recipe. I before E, except after C. So I think that's spelled right. English is such a weird language. This one's going to have an array list of type ingredient. Right? Array lists are nice because you don't need a pre-size for them. You could use an array, but again, it's a little bit more awkward because you have to know all the things. There is no E here, it's just receipt. All right, let me rename this. Rename receipt. Oh my goodness, this font is so small. Recipe. Recipe. Okay, I guess it's just like it sounds then. Recipe. Recipe. Sure. So we use an array list of ingredients. We'll call this ingredients. Ingredients. And then we're going to have a private string for like directions. And the directions we're going to be like mix this, and then bake this, or whatever. Like, you know, the steps in English, the narrative for how do we put these ingredients together? Because it's not always just throw everything in a bowl. We need to add our import for array list. Great, life was good. Then we're going to add our sets and gets. So insert code for setters and getters. Great, set and gets. And then we're going to add a constructor. Again, we want a no argument constructor. And then we want, for our purposes, a constructor that takes both of these. Makes life easy for us here. And we'll just call this given. Now, this needs to be a little bit trickier because we want an empty list here. So it's a new array list of type ingredient. So we create a new instance right away for this. So this is the empty version here. I don't want to give it null. Anytime you have nulls, you have the chance of crashing. And then the directions are blank because we don't know what they are. But this at least will set an array list that's empty here. And then if we wanted to, right, the set ingredients, you need to give it an entire array list. It's not super friendly for like, hey, I want to add one ingredient. So we can add another method here, like add ingredient, given an ingredient, and I'll call it an ingredient, right? We'll take our array list, our ingredients list, ingredients, and we'll just add ingredients dot, there we go, add the ingredient. So if you want to add one ingredient at a time, I can add to that ingredient list. Right? And remember, an array list, you can just add continually, essentially forever. At some point, you'll run out of memory, but like you'll need millions and millions and millions of these things because to store a string, a quantity, a double, and another string, you know, a couple bytes here and there, you know, 2 bytes for every letter. So sure, we're talking dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen, 4 dozen bytes, and we've got billions of bytes of memory. Right? Remember, bytes are 1, kilobytes are thousands, megabytes are thousands of thousands or millions, and gigabytes are billions of bytes. So we've got billions of bytes of memory to spare because we are ridiculously spoiled in modern computing. We don't need to worry about too much about memory optimization. So I've got my recipe then, right? It has the directions and the ingredients. So if I have a recipe, I tell it, hey, here's the directions. Step 1, put these in a bowl, mix them. Step 2, add these ingredients, do that. right? Sure, that's the directions, and then I just have the list of ingredients. If I want to change a recipe, change the quantity of it, right? If I'm going to double my recipe, take every ingredient, multiply its quantity by 2. If I want to halve the recipe, take every ingredient, multiply the quantity by half. So if I have the classes here, it's going to make it really easy to do this with a servlet. So we're going to add a servlet here. We'll call this the, I don't know, recipe servlet. Oh, recipe already exists. How about recipe servlet? Servlet, why not? And then, yes, we want to add this mapping stuff here. So sure, we'll call it servlet. That's probably a little bit ugly. You know, we could just go and call it recipe. We'll just call it recipe. And totally optional, just to make our URL look a little prettier. This will be like /recipe instead of /recipe servlet. They don't have to match, is the fun part. What gets put into this web XML here, remember, is the mapping. This tells it, hey, if you go to /recipe, go to the recipe servlet. The recipe servlet is project4.recipe servlet. Go find the class file that matches this. This is the compiled code that we're putting in the Tomcat server. So you can do any sort of mapping you want. You could call it ASDF, the mapping. And as long as you tell it which one to run when you go to /ASDF, you're fine. Right? It's very flexible, which is really cool. Okay, so we've got our servlet here then. Now, this one, we don't care if it's a get or a post. Shouldn't matter. Now, I'm going to send all of this stuff out to a JSP because I think that will make life easier for me rather than doing out print line for all my HTML stuff. Right? Because I think that just makes life easier for me. So what we need to do, though, is we need to get from the form data, we need to get what is the multiplier here. So we're going to make that recipe object. So I think we get rid of all of this, right? And then, you know, I'm just going to cheat here because I copy paste everything. So we'll go to 2454. Look at our last example here. So when we did our JSP examples, we'll take a look at our servlet first. That was this one, right? Is a servlet. It makes an instance, makes the menu, sets the attribute, does this response redirector thing. So this is essentially what I want here. Just a couple lines. We don't need all of it here, but this is fine to kind of go through some of that. All right, and then we're going to take out those beverages. We don't need the beverages. We don't need the menu stuff here. That's all fine. We're going to make a recipe. So a recipe equals a new recipe. Right, and then, sure, we can just use the default constructor. It'll be empty to start, and then I can say recipe.set directions. Set directions. There we go. And we'll say, I don't know, how about peanut butter and jelly? Does that make sense? So put peanut butter on both, or on bread, add jelly. That's it, really, right? What? Eat. Sure. Right, you could come up with any recipe you wanted. The recipe part didn't matter here. And then my recipe, now I'm going to call add ingredient. And again, I added this one to make life easier. If you didn't have this, you would have made a new array list of type ingredient, and you would have added them yourself. And then we would have called set ingredients on the recipe. Nothing wrong with that, right? That would have gotten the exact same job done, but I think this is easier here if I say, like, hey, I want a new ingredient, and its name is jelly, its quantity is 1, and its measure is tablespoon, right? Tablespoon of jelly, and then recipe.add ingredient. We want to do a new ingredient. This is peanut butter. We want 2 tablespoons. Right? Double the peanut butter because I love peanut butter compared to the jelly. And then we set our attribute of recipe given the recipe object. Then we're going to send this to a JSP. So this will be our recipe.jsp. So recipe.jsp is where we want to send it. So we go back to our web here, right? Our web pages, and we want to add a new JSP called recipe. Again, if you didn't do a JSP, perfectly fine, right? I think it's a nice shortcut, but was not required at all. Could have done it all straight in the servlet here. No problem. And then our JSP will do all this fun stuff here. So we essentially did this already, right, when we did our menu and a beverage. So I'm going to go copy paste that and just change a couple things. So back in our web, right, we had our beverage list JSP. that went through and used the bean and like went through and did all this other syntax, or the EL syntax is probably the easiest here, right? So we need a couple things. We need our tag library. We need to add our imports, right? So let's go back and add that tag library, add our import. Yeah, I'll just grab all those. Why not? So sure, we got the first one. We'll just replace that. So it's not JSP examples. This is project4.ingredient. Actually, we can just project4.star. I think we can just import everything, project4 star, and add our tag library if we want it. Here's our recipe. And then instead of a hello world, we'll come back and copy that. Hey, Professor Burp, thanks for hanging out tonight. I need a way for you guys to see the chat too, right? That would be cool. So we don't have a header, that's fine. We'll make a table, and then we'll use our EL style because that makes life easy for us. Again, any style is fine, right? But this, I think the EL style is easiest, and we'll talk more about that tonight, what those different styles are. So we're going to have the table having the name, the quantity, and the measure. Right, and then we also need the recipe directions. So at the top then, maybe in like a H2 or H3 or something, I'm going to take that recipe.directions. So we get the recipe directions here, great. Now we want for each of these here, right? So did we do that? I don't think we did the loop over here, did we? No, we didn't put that inside of a loop. Which one of these? Didn't we do a loop inside of one of these? Yeah, okay, yeah. This is the one I was thinking of here. There we go. Copy pasted the wrong one. And this was for ingredient in my recipe dot get ingredients. Oh, we need that recipe object. Look at that. We can do that here. Or I think we can do the dollar syntax too. We can do, is it a dollar recipe maybe? Is that it? That's fine. You know what? I don't remember, so we'll just do it this way. When we look at it in just a minute here, it'll make more sense. So this is a recipe. Call it recipe. Cast that as type recipe. Request.get recipe. Get attribute recipe. And then we have our recipe. Get ingredients. Maybe I misspelled that. And then it's ingredient dot get name, ingredient dot get quantity, ingredient dot get measure here. So this will give us just the straight recipe. We haven't dealt with the multiplication yet, right? So all this is going to do for us is give us the recipe with no modifications, right? When we hit our recipe servlet, we haven't changed anything yet, right? We'll do that in just a minute. We can get that data in a minute. We just want to make sure this one works here. So we go to our index page. We'll just add a little link. I guess we could add a form, right? We want a form at the select. So we'll do, let me go find a form here. Ooh, a recipe for tacos with homemade taco seasoning. So I'm usually lazy and I just use the pre-done taco seasoning. We want a select here inside of a form. We have just a nice easy one. No, that's fine. Select. Sure. Go back. We want a form. Form. Its action is going to send us to the recipe, or it was just recipe, right? Receipt. That's the recipe servlet, right? And then in that form, we will have this select we want to copy. Is not exactly the same, but that's okay. Don't need any of that. This name will be multiplier, maybe? Multiplier. And then we'll have a bunch of option values. So then the value should be what? what do you say, a quarter, right? Was going to be 1/4. And that's our option. And we'll add all of these options in here, right? For each select. Quarter, a half. Nope, not a comment. Regular, just 1 times 2 times 3 and times 4, right? I think is what we said. Half, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? 3, 2, 1, 1/2. Or should we do these at 0.5 maybe? Let's do that. So that way they're easier to convert into decimals, right? If I have them actually be numeric values, right inside of my options here. Okay, and then we on the select, we on the form. We just need a button here then, right? So button. My goodness, friends, I don't remember any of this stuff. I feel really dumb having to go search my button, but it's not the kind of thing. What do you mean I don't have a button? Submit. There we go. Type of submit. Goodness. You overcomplicated? It's easy to overcomplicate. That's okay. That happens all the time. There we go. So change this recipe or something like that. Sure. Right? So all we give them is the option list and the change recipe button. We're good to go. If we wanted to put this in our own JSP to like point at ourselves, we could do that too, right? That way we don't have to go back to the home page to multiply. That would probably be even nicer here. So we can do that here. Just change this whole form. And we'll stick that inside the recipe as well. Sure, I'm going to feel a little bit bad about that, but that's okay. Maybe we'll put that at the bottom after that table closes, right? We'll add another form here, okay? Still go to the recipe servlet so we can multiply it. Let's give it a try. Let's see how well it works for us. So the index page should just have that drop down. It's not going to be very exciting. Or really, I guess at that point, you could just go to the recipe servlet. Otherwise, like we've doubled the form here at some point. Let's do that. We can just do a href equals recipe. I don't know, recipe. Yeah, that'll be even easier. So we don't even need to like have the form initially. We can just take them to the servlet. You can do some cool things to do automatic redirects. That's, again, probably beyond the scope of what we want to try and tackle. Let's throw this over here. All right, so here's the link. So this is the index page. We'll take them over to the servlet. Oh, goodness. We didn't add the JSTL core. So that's okay. Back in NetBeans, just need to go to our libraries section here. And we're going to add a library for the JSTL. Okay, once we have the library, we'll rerun that guy. See what we get. Go back. All right, cool. We got recipe. We hit our recipe servlet. Oh, another compile class for JSP. Line 160. Oh, goodness. We screwed something up in our JSP. Wouldn't compile. Trying to find that whole error here. Select, insert to complete a block. Okay, so we must have screwed something up in our block here. That's in our recipe JSP. Where'd that go? Here it is. Oh yeah, we never ended this code block. Oops, I did a for each here and I didn't end it. So after each table row then, right, we need to end that code block. Right? You still unhappy with me? Illegal start. Isn't this what we did? My friends, it's been 2 weeks, and we're going to go back and look at our examples again. Not that one, not that one, not that one. Oh yeah, here we go. Our menu and our beverage list. Yeah, the beverage, open it, close it. Why is it so confused here? For ingredient, open and close it. Oh, it's fine now. Maybe it just took a second to recognize that. No big deal. It's upset we didn't end our our thing here. All right, here we go. You get peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter, 1 tablespoon. Jelly, 1. Peanut butter, 2. Let's change the recipe. Go to a quarter. Oh, we're not doing anything with the multiplier yet. Oops. Let's go back to the servlet. Oh no, you didn't have the option value, Efhane? Yeah, definitely. Being able to set the option here is huge for that. So now we need to make our servlet go and get that modifier. So we're going to go to our request. We're going to get attribute. We want the multiplier. Right? And then if our multiplier, oh, sorry, we saved this. String multiplier. Sure, toString. We'll cast it as a string. Okay, if the multiplier does not equal null, right, make sure it actually does exist. If it's not null, then we're going to go through, turn it into a double. We'll have a double, I don't know, maybe the factor is double.parse double, given the multiplier. And then we'll say for ingredient in my recipe.get ingredients. We'll take the ingredient and we'll call set quantity equal to the ingredient.get quantity times the multiplier. Right? Usually this is a read-only loop, but when you have objects, you can use methods on that object to change its values here. Right? Why is it not like that? Double and a string. Oh, that's right, because the quantity... Oh, not the times a factor. That's what I did wrong. Factor, not times the multiplier. That's our factor. Right? So if we find a multiplier in the request string, let's go turn it into a double, and then every ingredient will multiply by the factor, resetting the quantity to what it used to be times that. Okay, let's give that a shot. See if we can actually multiply it here now. We'll go to our recipe. Let's change it to a quarter. Uh-oh. Didn't change anything. Let's see. Multiplier. Maybe I spelled it wrong. Multiplier. No, I spelled it the same way. Why is it not getting that attribute? Okay, I don't know. Let's put it in debug mode. We'll try that. We'll debug it. What? Okay, that's weird. Can't see. Where's that scroll bar? Oh, okay. This guess is working anyway. Maybe the error didn't mean anything. All right, go to recipe. Okay, we hit our breakpoint. So let's see. So we step. Multiplier is null. Okay, so nothing should happen. We set our attribute. Life is good. Continue. The servlet's fine. We responded. We got back. No? Oh, so I have to continue further? Oh, okay. Continue further. There we go. Missed my continue button. We got the recipe. Now let's go change it here. We stop at our breakpoint again. Try and get that multiplier attribute. Oh, it's still null. Let's get attribute multiplier. Isn't that in the request? Request. Where is it here? Sorry, look at this other screen. Jeez, where is it? Request. Somewhere in attributes. There we go. Attributes. Oh, size is 0? Oh, we have no attributes. And it's sending it to the same place, I thought. Let's see. We'll reload our page. Yeah, recipe. Yeah, the recipe. I'm sending it with the multiplier. Let's continue. Okay, so we got the recipe. Change recipe. Goes back to recipe multiplier is 25. That is Look at this one here. Right, it's in the request. Oh no, it's just a get. That's right, it's just a get. So we're just doing the get posting here with multiplier. Request get attribute. Multiplier null. Get that. It's not responding. Didn't work. Turn off our dev mode. No, not full screen. Recipe, multiplier. We're doing something wrong. What are we doing wrong here? Take a look at our other example. Here's our servlet. Servlet. Yeah, we never did any getting anything out of here. Not in this one. It was in Hello World we did. Source, Hello World, world. Request, get parameter. Oh my goodness, friends. Get parameter. All right, it's a parameter. I'm sorry, not an attribute. We set attributes this way. It's been 2 weeks and I forgot everything, friends. All right, go to recipe. Change it to a quarter. Yay, look at that. We got a quarter. Change it to full, like 3 times. Hey, we got 3 times x. Now, the only thing that's not pretty here is we're not getting this right one is selected. So you could go and get that value in our JSP and do some quick checking to say, hey, what is the multiplier attribute if you wanted to make it pretty? Again, we're not really super focused on pretty, but I'm going to feel a little bit bad about it. So we might as well get that attribute too in our JSP and clean this up one last time here. So our recipe JSP, we need to check and see, right? We want, but if request.get parameter multiplier dot equals ignoring case. Let's do this. Let's do it the other way around. Let's do 0.25 dot equals ignoring case, because this way, if this is null, it won't give me back a true. Right? String of this one here. It is that, right? Then we want selected equals true. Right? How do we spit that out somewhere? Hang on. HTML selected. How do you set which one's selected? Okay, oh, you just say selected. Okay, just selected. Let's say selected. So we can just throw each one of these with this equal sign, right? We're going to just, if this one here, goodness, how do we put that in there? Selected. No? Legal start of expression. Shoot. Because we're just checking to see if it is selected. We want to go out there. Let's do this. Okay, we'll do one of those ugly ternary expressions. So colon or question mark. If that's true, else selected. Is that going to work? Oh, wait, you know what? That to be the false, this one to be the true case. Goodness. Where's my parenthesis? That is that one. Don't need a one there. String type cannot be converted to Boolean. Equals ignore case. Multiplier. Right? It should be. Go back and Google that. Java ternary. Where is it? Ternary operator. Equals the expression. I'm backwards here. Expression, question mark selected, full and blank. Okay, all this work for this ugly, ugly, ugly thing here, so we can figure out which one was selected or not. So we'll do a quick, sort of quick. The ternary expression says, hey, if this, question mark, you get this one, else, the false, you get this one here. To get mostly one-liner, I'm going to throw this in each one of these here to say whether or not it's been selected. There we go. And we can put this in each one of these. Over here. And then I just need to change these ones. So it's 0.5, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, I guess the only problem is, so we're not going to get the 1 out. If we go to, yeah, let's do this. Let's take our index here. We'll say recipe multiplier equals 1. We'll set the multiplier to 1 to start to see if that works for us. Recipe multiplier is 1. There, now 1 is picked. So now if I go to a quarter and I change it, I stay at a quarter. If I go to 3 and I change it, I go to 3. I go to 4. Hey, look at that. It's pretty. All that to make this drop down a little prettier, right? Because we can do that. We have full control over what's getting put in our recipe JSP. So we can say, hey, you are selected if these match. Cool. The only problem we're going to have if we don't have any of them here, right, if we just go here on our own, it's going to throw it at a quarter and it's not going to match. So maybe we want to set our own, use an attribute instead of a parameter in the recipe servlet. Right, so if it does equal null, then maybe we could set something here. We could do that. So we can do else. Let's do set attribute. We'll do set attribute multiplier as the multiplier. And if it's not there, then we'll set it to the value of 1. So then we can get, instead of get parameter, we can get attribute. That way it's always set, even if we go around that little link here. Let's try that. I think this will work a little nicer. So our recipe, sure, and even if we take out the multiplier, oh goodness. Oh, I didn't change it over in the JSP, did I? No. Exception occurred. Request get attribute. Line 30. Getting the attribute. Multiplier. Did I set it to 1? Integer cannot be cast to string. Oh, okay. That's right. I need the string 1 here in my servlet. The string 1. Not the integer 1. That was the problem. So all these funny little things here always come up. Oops, I think that there. If you just take out the multiplier, and we get stuck at 1. The other fun thing this means is I can take this multiplier and I can do like, hey, let's go serve 100 people. Right? And then this is flexible too, because this recipe is a little bit incomplete. Right? We want to add another ingredient. We want slice of bread, or maybe just bread, right? and then the measure would be slice. So I just need to change one thing here, and now I've got a better recipe. And again, if we could hook this up to a database, we could have some sort of recipe database that we go and pull these all from, right? Like recipes.com or something. We do the same thing. Put the peanut butter on the bread, add jelly, and eat, right? A quarter slice of bread? Well, sure, I guess you can make a quarter slice of bread. That's kind of a funny one here, but that ought to work for you. Does this make sense? Again, just looking at some of the ways we can make this a little bit nicer. Not even like the prettiest thing in the world, but using our attributes here, checking for those. That's all just little extra stuff. You didn't need any of that, but it made me feel a little better that it wouldn't always come up with a quarter when it was actually showing me one, and I would get confused, like, oh, well, if this is a quarter of the recipe, I need to multiply it a bunch, right? And that sort of thing. Now, the other fun thing you can do, if we wanted to, we could pass a list of multipliers as well to the recipe JSP so that its select didn't have to be built in, right? We could give it some sort of object, some sort of list of values that we wanted to add, instead of it being hard-coded a quarter, half, 1, 2, 3, 4. We could just pass it any sort of list if we wanted to. I'm not sure how much value there is in that, but it's flexible. And that's sort of the idea here, is that anything that we want can be dynamic, because we're coding the back-end web server portion of it. Anything that we want, we can put in there. And we can make it flexible. We can pull it out of anywhere we want. Part of the fun. See, those probably need spaces. Got a little prettier. Okay. Thoughts, questions, concerns? We feel okay about Project 4? Again, this is the only required one for JSP Java. If you want to do the final project in Java, great. I think it does end up being a little easier if you're more familiar with Java to do the final project in Java and build out all of our classes and things, but doing it in PHP is perfectly fine too. There's nothing wrong with going back to PHP to do our final project. So we get all this committed to GitHub here, and we can go from there. Let's see, so we need 2454, fall. This is project 4. I can't count, friends. Project 4. We'll commit and push, so that one's out there for you folks. And then I've been talking for almost about an hour, so I think we're about due for a break. We'll get some Coke. I've got a little bit left to finish up here, and then we'll pick it up with the JSTL library and the expression language and just other shortcuts to make life easier for us when we're doing things, working with our Java programs. And then we also need to talk about the final project once we're done with that as well. Okay? Awesome. So we put on some music here for fun, and we'll go take a break. And we'll go from there. Let's do break time. We'll take about 10 minutes or so. That should put us out to 7:07 p.m. All right, welcome back, everybody. Apparently I wasn't watching the clock. I'm off in my own little world here. Alrighty, so we're going to move on to chapter 8 and 9. More on using this expression language, which makes life a whole lot easier. Expression language is probably the most common way that you'll see people using attributes, that sort of thing, just because it makes life easier for us. Like, it's a little bit easier to type out, kind of see that sort of format. The downside is you still, a little bit of this code block stuff is not the worst thing in the world to try and get at, like a list of attributes here. So we're not using that expression language here. Right? We're kind of going back to that other format, but it's not terrible. So it does a lot of really cool, handy shortcuts for us. And if we do have multiple properties on things, so this with a list was not the greatest example of that, but if I wanted to get out, say, just the first value or the first ingredient here out of one of these, I could still use expression language for it. So I'd just be saying, hey, I want the, it's the recipe bean. So it's automatically going to go look for beans, which are those attributes you've attached by name. So it's looking for something named recipe, just like we did here. And it'd be, which was ingredients, and then we could use the index notation to get out that first ingredient right here if we wanted. So if you do have something with a list, if you know, like, hey, there's 3 things in it every time, we can get out index 0, index 1, index 2 quickly. Our problem was we didn't know how many ingredients we had. So it took us a little bit more to get into this sort of notation here. So if you have objects that have other objects as properties, right, we can get at them directly. So like this is the directions property, but if this was another class here, let me just start a new project. Maybe we'll do that. So let's do a new one. This is EL and JSTL. Sure. Finish. Okay, and then we'll add a new package. EL and JSTL. Inside of our package, let's add a class here. Let's do a new Java class, and let's call this one, how about, I want to go with something that has lots of properties here. We'll go with the book. Right, this idea with the book is it has a couple attributes. We need another one here. We need another Java class for publisher. And then the publisher itself has attributes, right? Generally, when you look at a book's publisher, you're going to have a string for their name, you're going to have a string for their address, and you're going to have a, what else do we know about publishers? String for city, state, and zip, I guess. Private string, state, and a private string for zip. Right, so we can, hey, here's the publisher, here's their location. And then a book then can have a private publisher attribute, publisher, as the publisher. Right, and then it has the other information. We'll have its string for name. We'll have and probably like an author attribute, right? We can add a author class. And then the author class, right? First name, private string, first name, private string for last name. And then, you know what, this is a little bit silly here, so let's do another class for fun here called address. Right? If we're going to have our own city, state, zip, might as well just have an address here. Private string, and we just take these out of publisher. So address, city, state, and zip, right, can all just be part of address here, and then each of them can have an address. So it can have a private address, right, and then an author has an address, right? We don't want to do more work than we need to. So private address. This is the lovely idea that our classes are reusable and portable and all that good stuff here. Now, each of these need to be beans, though, which is the problem. So we have to do a lot of insert code. Getters and setters, get and set for everything, and then constructors, right? One no argument constructor, and then, again, I'm a fan of parameterized constructors because that makes it easier for me to use. Because that way I can say, hey, I want a new address, and I'll give you all of those in one line instead of making a new address and then address set city, address set state, address set zip, address set I guess that's silly. This is like, we should call that street address. Let me change this. So don't don't change it in one place, right, you're going to run into all sorts of trouble here. So go to refactor rename. I'll call this street address. Right, so it's the street address then, and it changes it in all of your methods too, if it's smart enough, which is pretty fantastic. Okay, so then book has a private author for author, has a publisher, it has its own name, and then probably a published date. Date and times are hard, so I'm just going to cheat here, and we'll just do this as the published date. Published date, maybe? Dealing with an actual date time object, all sorts of weirdness. And then, you know, if it's a time, you have times in there where you only really want the date, and then time zones do funny things. I'm just going to cheat and have a string. I'm sorry. All right, and then we just need to insert our code, have our getters and setters. Okay, add our constructor. Our code is our constructor, the no argument constructor, and then add the parameterized constructor. It takes everything here. And again, we don't want nulls, so I want this one to be a new publisher with no arguments, a empty name, an empty new author, and an empty string for the published date, right? So make sure we have objects. Anytime you have a reference type, you want to not have nulls when we're dealing with those. So we did address of this, right, given just a bunch of empty strings, because why not? State. Now, a zip code could probably be a number, but if you give someone a 9-digit zip code, typically there's a dash in it, and then we'd have to check and make sure we remove the dash. And then if someone has a zip code with leading zeros, you'd actually lose the leading zeros, and you might be confused about how many digits are actually in the zip code. So just dealing with it as a string, typically a 5-character string, makes life easier. So you don't say, oh, it's an integer value, because I know they're just numbers from 0 to 99999, right? Dealing with leading zeros is obnoxious with integers. I mean, there's ways around it and formatting things, but this is fine. So we got publisher, right? Has a name and address. Do we care about anything else for publisher? I think that's probably it. Getters and setters, sure. Add some constructors. Add a constructor, a no argument constructor. Add a parameterized constructor. Takes both of these, and then we can just call this given an empty and then a new address. Okay, so we got that. We got address has one. We've got book has one. Author, there we go. Author, first, last name, address. Anything else we want to know about author? Probably fine for now. Insert some code. Getters and setters for everything. And then add our constructors. Constructor, no argument constructor, and then the parameterized constructor. Okay, and then again, we'll do a this with empty first name, empty last name, and then a new address, just for a blank address here if we don't know. Okay. Format, give that one a format, give that one a format, that one a format. All right, so now we've got all of our classes here. All of our beans are set. Oh, they need to implements, serializable. Nope, not serial. Serializable. That one. There we go. So we need to implement serializable on all of these. All the way down the chain here, right? They all need to implement serializable. And it's nice enough it says, hey, do you want to add that import? Yes, please add the import. Implement serializable. Okay, so all down the chain, they're all serializable. Just giving it one more format. Okay. Now we have all these. Now I can make a servlet then that will go do something with some of these things, right? So this is our, I don't know what, book servlet or something, or books. Yes, we want to add the information. Great. And again, this is not all that interesting without a database behind the scenes, but we can hard code a little bit of data in here for us if we want to start. So to do all that, right, we're going to keep that response. And then we're going to go through, let me just copy out of this servlet here. Right, eventually we get a URL, we'll set an attribute somewhere, send it on to the JSP. Books. Okay. So this will be, I don't know, books.jsp, why not? So in order to make the book, right, we need an address, we need an author, we need a publisher, and we need an address for both the author and the publisher, and then we need to make the book. So we have a lot of attributes all the way down this chain here. So we'll make the author first. Author equals a new author. Do you guys want to write a book, or should someone else write a book? Mr. John Smith writes a book. Bob Smith, I don't know. Who should write the book? Ooh, I missed it. Bill wanted a dad joke. Professor Perp can write a book. All right, you got it. Professor Perp. Got 2 P's in there. And then, oh, author needs an address first. Sorry, we need an address first. So this is the author address equals a new address given 123 Main Street in Farmington Hills. That's in Michigan, and the zip code 48331 or something, 334, 331, one of those. Here, which one it is here. And that's the author address. Right? Semicolon. Did I miss my semicolon? Missed my semicolon. So you've got an address for the author, and we need a publisher address. Address for the publisher. There's a new address. Oh, they took perp with 1 P. That's sad. All right, so we need a different address. Hey, where should this publisher be? How about 234 2nd Street in Farmington Hills. Michigan 48331 in quotes there. That's right, that's a string. Okay, then we can make a publisher. Publisher equals a new publisher. Books by perp. The name at the publisher address. Great. Then we got all those, and then we can make a book. Book. The new book. And then the name of the book. How to get good. And what else did book need? I'm forgetting now. Okay. Oh, the publisher first. Publisher, name, author, publish date. Okay, I'm backwards. So publisher first. The publisher, name, author, publish date, 11/11/2021. Right, and then we can add that book here. Book attributes to the book's JSP. All right, all that work so that this object has properties of other objects, and that object has other properties. So you can see like it's sort of this cascading. The book has a publisher has an address. We can use this cool notation to get at those attributes here. All right, and I gotta find a dad joke here. Missed that one for Bill 9. So you guys know I'm a big nerd, and occasionally when I'm talking, I let references from Lord of the Rings slip into my conversations, and I like to call those my Freudian slips. All right, that one, maybe that one wasn't the best one. You need a different one. All right, let's see. Got another one here. A friend of mine just moved into a house they're renting. And they were going to have some housewarming party. You're supposed to bring a gift. And I told my wife, we really need to bring a space heater. They're perfect housewarming gifts. She didn't appreciate that one. That was a better dad joke, though, I think, right? Yeah, keep saving up those channel points for sure. All right, so now we need a JSP. So now we need a new JSP. This one's going to be books, right? And in here, then, we needed to have an information about the book. So we're only going to have one book now. Like a list of books might be nice. We can do that in a little bit. But essentially, what we're going to do then is we're going to have our book information. So we'll have, we're going to do this as a table. And then we can have a table row. And then inside that table row, we'll put some table data. It's going to be book dot. And now we can just go to all of these with this dot notation. So the book attribute, or the book object, right, has an author attribute. The author has a first name attribute, first name. So I don't need to use any of the get methods or names. It all by convention will just go and use the name of the attribute here, and it's going to know to call the get methods for me. So the long way of doing this all, right, would have been, hey, here's my code block, and it's going to be, assuming we had this book object, it'd be book.getAuthor.getFirstName, right? That's the long way of doing this. Where do I comment it out? There we go. But with the expression language, it's assumed that because we're working with beans, that we just use these dot properties here. So that's the first name. And then we do this for last name. And then if we wanted to get their address as well, right, we do a one level deeper. So it's book.author.address dot, and address had all those other things in address, right? Street address, right? You get all these. We have street, city, state, and zip. Street, city, state, and zip. Here. Great. Why did that not comment it out? Should have been commented out there. I'm confused. Maybe it just needs a refresh. Right, so in my servlet then, right, when we go make our books, lowercase b books, sorry, lowercase books here, we'll go and get all those properties out here. We'll call that our table, and our table, no, goodness, what? Table. All right, do I just comment that out? Why is that not happy there? Okay. Oh, if it's an HTML comment, it thinks it's still doing some code block stuff here. So it's got to be the JSP comment format. All right, so if we give this a run, /books, we get Professor Burp, 123 Main Street, Farmington Hills, Michigan, 48331. And the table's not the prettiest right now. We can pretty up that table, but the way we can get through all of these attributes, right? Attributes, or this is the object.attribute.attribute.attribute, like working its way down the chain. This is a lot prettier and a little easier to type, right, than some of these outputs. You don't save tons and tons of time, but just the succinctness of this is pretty popular and common. We like that we can do some of those. Let's see. Yep, that's good. Our tags, yep. So we're not even looking at the standard tags because those are ugly. We looked at that last time. Dollar braces. Yeah, I should add something, Professor Burp, for some of those higher tiers. Talk about adding like push-ups. I don't even know what I do with like 20k points for someone who gets so many channel points. Let's see. Property. Not too worried about the scope. Yeah, working with arrays we looked at. We can do that with arrays. The dot operator. So I'm just checking through, making sure we're not missing anything here in the book. Yep. That's good. Attribute property. Yep, those are all looking good. Inside of this, we can do all sorts of other arithmetic too, right? It's not just getting out an attribute. If you wanted, right, we could do table data. Let's just do, like 4 times 10 or something. Like you can put any sort of things we could have done inside of a code block, any quick little expressions you can put in here. You can check if something equals something, if something doesn't equal something, and you get those values back out. So they work out pretty well. We're doing some fun things with that. Yeah, and then using the ternary operators as well. Okay, so we could have done a ternary operator in here for that. So if like we didn't have a publisher, so we say book.publisher equals null, then we'll go with question mark first, empty string. Otherwise, then we can say, hey, I want the book.publisher.name, right, as my ternary operator. So I can do some checking too to make sure I'm not going to try and get at null values. That was /books, right? Then if we didn't have one of those, so if we go back and we actually just make one of these things null here, we go back to our books servlet. Let's say if the publisher was just null here, right? If I don't give them an actual object, generally your code is going to crash if you're not being careful about it here. But you see it just blanks it out now, right? And if we didn't have that check, right, if we just wanted to say, hey, just give me that property here, just copy this one, and forget the check and just say, hey, give me the name here. Got too many tabs open, sorry. Oh, okay, it does null checking. It does the null checking for us, which is nice. Forgot about that. That's the other great thing with the expression language. If it is null, it's not going to try and get at a name attribute. So, comment null checking is nice. Okay, so we don't have to bother with any of these extra, hey, making sure if it is null, do something here. It's real friendly. Yep. Cool. All right, so I think that's a quick check there at the expression language. And we used a little bit of it already, but then to look at the JSTL, the Java or the JSP standard tag library, gives us some additional options for doing some of these loops in a prettier way, which is fun. So using that tag library, right, we needed to go through, so in our project, we added the library here, this JSTL library, and then we added the import saying, hey, give me this core library, I'm going to call it C. So in my tags, anything that I want to use, I can use a C tag here to get those values. So instead of like these blocks here, right, we can use our C notation here. So we could say we want to, this is a tag C using the out. If we want to output something, we can say, hey, what is the output? We want to output a value of, and this is the $ingredient. I think we should just be able to say name now here. Ingredient.name inside of our C tag. That needs to be in quotes though, I think. See if that works for us. Let's give this a shot. Oh, no. Oh, shoot. I missed my $sign somewhere. What did I do wrong? Yes, yeah. Oh, I missed my curly braces. There we go. Let's try that. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm missing one other step because we're looping inside of something here. So we need to do a loop. So we need, there we go. This is prettier. So I can, inside of my loop, right, to do a loop, I can say this core library, do a for each loop. I'm going to say the variable is going to be named ingredient. Ingredient. And then the items, the collection here then, is going to be my recipe.ingredients. More quotes here. My goodness. So we're going to get, for every ingredient in the recipe get ingredients, or the ingredients list, again, using that bean notation. So here's my object, which is recipe, ingredients here. So I can skip this other for loop. And I can do it with a C tag. And then inside of that, I can just output ingredient name. right? Ingredient quantity and ingredient measure. Ingredient quantity and measure. And then I don't need these code block loops. I can use the for each loop, and then when I want to end the loop, it's like code block slash code block for each. Ends the for each tag. So this way I can get items out of a collection without having to do the code block, and doing it just with tags, with the standard tag library. Gives you just a slightly quicker way to write some of these loops. Give that a shot. Oh, shoot. All right, where did we break it? JSP property not found, recipe, property ingredients. I must have spelled something wrong. Let's take a look. What did I do in my recipe class? Recipe class, ingredients. Did I typo that? Servlet. Nope, in the JSP. Recipe, ingredient. Yep. Ingredient. There's a D in there. There we go. Recipe. All right, awesome. I should be able to change my recipe measures, right? Do all my doubling. So again, it's not really anything new, but we're getting slightly easier syntax here, right? Than having to create the object and then like have the closing curly brace. This just makes life a little bit cleaner for us and gives us access to essentially that expression language for subproperties. So if you have a property of an object that is another collection, we can get at each one of those and still use the expression language then to say, hey, ingredient.property, ingredient.property. It makes it a little easier for us to deal with those sort of collections in there. Now, the other cool thing you can do is you can have a default value. So when we go look for some of these things, so if we were back in our example here, looking at our JSP, we go add our libraries. So let's add our JSTL library. And we need to add that import as well. That's the only downside, like 2 extra steps to do all these imports here. Okay. So if we didn't have a publisher instead, right, we could say, here's my C, and I want to output something. So this is the C out, a value of, this always trips me up here. I want the quote first, then the dollar, then the brace. There we go. This is book.publisher.name. And then I can have a default here. Let me end that. And then a default value of, I don't know, like what, self-published, maybe? We'll say if there is no publisher. And then end the table data. So using this notation here, I don't, we could do these null checks and add in like a default here if we wanted. This one could be self-published then. Let's give this one a run. Take a look at our books page. We'll get self-published with that notation, or self-published with the standard template library or standard tag library. Not having to do the null check here, we can just say, hey, we'll get this value, and if it's null, give me the default instead. I like this one better because these ternary expressions always confuse me all the time. So it gives you a quick little way to say, hey, if there wasn't a value here, let me go give you something else. So that's pretty fun. The for each tag we looked at. You can automatically split a string if you wanted to with using a token. I'm not quite as fond of that one. I'm not sure exactly how useful that is. But if someone gives you a string that's like a comma separated values, you can split it up just in the JSTL using a for each loop or a for tokens loop, and it does the split for you. I don't know. Generally, I feel like you should do that more in the servlet, but that's fine. Let's see. You can do other fun stuff with loops. I don't think it's all that useful. You can like give it a starting value or an ending value, kind of like an actual for loop, if you wanted to, in a tag for each loop. Sure, we might as well try it. We might as well try one of these. So we'll do a C loop, we'll do for each, and then in here you give it some other properties. So we say, okay, well, what is our value here? Right, so we want, hey, so if I have an array of something that I want to loop through, we'll just call this numbers, or what is it, our items equal dollar numbers. And then our variable, then for an individual number here, is just number. And then we begin at 0, and we want to end at, we'll say 10 here. And you want to step one at a time, right? How much we're going to increment each time. And then some variable status. Status. Var status we'll call status. So you can get some other interesting information out here with this. These are super funky. And then inside of that loop, then, we can print out here with expression language. We want, I don't know, the book does a little list here, which is fine, a little list item, given the number itself, right? And then it gives, you can say first, so that status will tell you if it's the first item or not. So that's the status dollar status first property or a last property dollar status dot last. So if it's the first item in the loop, the last item in the loop, or you can get the index out as well with the status, which is kind of fun. Status dot index. And then as well, you can get a count here. Count being status.count. And our little list item here. So if I attach a numbers list in my servlet, just for fun, to make an array of numbers, int numbers equals new integer array. Sure, we'll do like 50 numbers here, and then for int index is 0, index is less than 50, index plus plus. Oh, we shouldn't do that. We should do our numbers.length. We'll say our numbers array at index is equal to, we'll just set it to the index. And then we need to set that attribute, so we can go get it here in a minute. We'll set numbers as the numbers array. All right, all this to set up, hey, I want to loop through with specific jumping here. Start at index 0, end at index 10, go step by step one at a time here with my for each loop notation. We take a look at our books, /books. We get, oh, I think I typoed something here. Number, right? Numbers, there we go, numbers. The numbers object there. Variables number for each number. Try that again. There we go. And we'll see, okay, here's the value, and then whether or not it was the first one we picked or the last one we picked, right? The index itself, and then the count of how many we've looked at. You can get all sorts of properties as you're looping through if you need to get specific array indexes. Kind of a special use case, but that's kind of fun. You can use an if tag, which is really fun. So this one's pretty useful here. So we can say, hey, see if, and then use this test notation. We're going to say, what is the test? What are we checking here to see if it's true? And we can say, hey, does my numbers dot, the length property equal, if it's 50? Sure. Sorry, all that inside this curly brace. If the length equals 50. Then what do I do if that's true? Here. If that's true, then I can go do, how about we'll just do output or something. Little c output the value of, I'll just do numbers length. Why not? So you can do a quick if check. Instead of doing a code block if check, you can do it with your tags. Right, this one's not super interesting for our numbers here, but sure. Oops. Oh man. What did I miss here? Input string length. So not length. Numbers. I thought it was length. Is it length? Take a look at our servlet. Yeah, it should be length. Oh, it might not actually pull that one through as a property. Sorry, that's obnoxious. Yeah, I spelled that one right, but so it is not pulling that up as a property. Book.author, they equal, what's your perp? That's not even a good equals check, right? Equals, and we'll try equals. Nope. All right, it doesn't even like that one. Sure. The whole thing? Oh my goodness. Book.author. What else can we check? Count? No one uses count. Oh, because it's not a whole property is why. What do we want to check in here? That's fine. I'm just gonna skip this one for now. I don't have a good check in our example. We'd have to build out some other stuff. But there's this fun. It checks the number of items in your cart. You can say, hey, if it's one or if it's more than one, you can list out, hey, you have one thing, or you can do this like pluralizing to make it look a little smarter here. Do you want to check out by the items in your cart or by the item in your cart? You can do some pretty looking stuff there with those if checks. Yeah, a choose tag is essentially lets you have multiple options instead of a if, else if, else if. You have to use a choose tag. And they're going through their card example. You can look at that one. Can make URLs. That's fun too. Goodness. And there's a lot of stuff in the JSTL. We don't need to use most of it though, but there's some fun things there. If you take a look at the cart example, it'll get you through what you need, which is fun. But we're not going to do like a shopping cart application. But lots of fun features in there. All right, that's probably enough fun. You want to talk about the final project? Okay. All right. Let me commit what we have here. GitHub. Oh, I already had it open. There we go. This is some more YL and JSTL. Where'd my cursor go? There it is. All right, cool. So I've got two options here. The first option I like because I think it makes for a fun project is building your own Twitter. The downside is I know there's examples online, and it worked well the first time, and then over the summer, like 3 people used an example they found online and just turned it in with their own name on it and failed. It made me do a lot of paperwork, have to report people to the dean, irritates me, just makes me sad. Rather than trying to use it as an exercise to go through and try and put everything together, right? To build it out from scratch. The reason I do like it as a final project is it's something fun and you can like talk about when you interview. Like, hey, this was kind of a capstone project I did, and these are all the things that had to go into it. And it makes for an interesting talking point. It's not actually the hardest website in the world to build, right? But you have to have logins, so you can log into your account. We have to track your account on your session. And then we have the database backing it that has the list of, we're going to call them tweets anyway. Whatever our non-branded name for these are. I guess for school we can still use it. We're not selling anything, so it's probably fair use to steal their intellectual property, as long as we're not going to sell it, right? But you'll have the tweets, and then you can follow people. So we need to go be able to find users here with some sort of searching for users by name, and we can look up the database, find all the users. A way to follow them adds them to a table of people that we follow. So there's a lot of interesting design that happens behind the scenes, and then when you go to your homepage, you'll just see all the tweets from people you follow. Then you can like tweets. Liking is another like interesting step. Ideally, we're going to do some asynchronous JavaScript for that one to send out, say, oh, hey, add a like here, but not have to change anything on the page aside from the like count. We'll just like increase the like count by 1. So you don't need to like go to a whole other page behind the scenes. You can just do it one step. And so following people, unfollowing people, or going just to someone's page to see their particular tweets. Right? I think it makes for a lot of fun stuff. Sorry, give me one second. My wife is calling. I don't know what this is about. Sorry. Sorry. One of my kids is not doing so well at home. Sorry about that. All right, so do you think the Twitter project would be interesting? And we'll just all agree not to go copy-paste the Twitter example that you can find online, which includes all sorts of other cascading style sheets and asynchronous JavaScript stuff that like makes a real better clone, and then it's super obvious that you didn't do yourself? Or do you want a different project? Totally up to you folks. So the other option is doing some sort of like a game where you've got a bunch of users logged into the system and they have different positions on some sort of two-dimensional grid that we keep in the database, and everyone's at like a different location, and then when 2 people end up on the same space, you can like fight that person. So when you're logged in, you'll see, oh, there's someone in your space, there's no one in your space, and you can move up, down, left, or right in your different locations. And the idea is you get so many turns per 1 hour. So you can have like 5 actions every hour. And then every hour we go give people more actions. The hour timer piece is a little bit trickier to do. We do that generally by hand. You just like say you increase the hour. Ideally that's some sort of like database level thing that happens, and it just goes and adds turns for people that we don't need to tackle. We can just have like an admin, hey, give me more turns button. But finishing that out as a full game is kind of interesting and fun. Like they can navigate around, and you can, as far as you want to take it, you can add obstacles or equipment, you can pick items up, but I don't want to get it too complex. But just kind of navigating around, having people in a database. So we got 1 vote for Twitter and 1 vote for the game online here. And we switch back to this screen here. Look. Oh, we get the Twitch inception here. All right, 2 votes for Twitter. And you could do either, I guess. I'm sorry?
Either one is fine.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we could do either. If you want to do the game, we'll chat more about the game. If you want to do the Twitter clone, we can do more with that Twitter clone, and we can go from there. Where you have to like tweet your commands. So I just saw, you know, there's like this ridiculous idea of making everything run Doom. Someone did. It'll run Doom if you tweet at it, and it will reply back with screenshots of your status in the game. And like you can tweet move forward, you can tweet shoot, you can tweet, you know, turn left, turn right, and you can get like 1 frame at a time. That might be pretty cool. Like of all the like running Doom on things, Doom on a pregnancy test. I heard about that, but I had no idea how that even does any. Like doesn't make any sense to me. I guess it's an electronic, but Yeah, all sorts of fun things you can put Doom on. But yeah, that's where I was thinking. So let me grab this page here. Let me go grab that project, and I'll put it out. Give me 1 second. Let me put this other screen up here. Let's do this one. And you can see the other screen for a second while I go copy this. Oh no, we don't want that error one. There. Sure, you can see that one. I'll go grab our final project. You know what? Let me export all that actually. That'll work better. And then I'm sorry, I'm behind on getting those other projects graded for you. I'm working on those. I should be able to get caught up in the next week or so. I keep saying that, and then things keep piling up, which is unfortunate. But we're getting there. So select, select, select. All right, we want the final project. We want the final project. And the final project rubric. There we go. All right, I go grab all those. Export. Download the zip. Come back to us. Okay, I think we're good here. Go back to this one. We'll go import. Grab this from downloads. No, that one, my goodness. Import all those. And I just got to change the date for you here. So ours was going to be the 16th, right? In December. Got just over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, but 1 week is Thanksgiving. So hopefully you're not going to do any work on Thanksgiving here. Let's see how well that imported here. Our final project. Edit that for, yep, the due date was wrong. And then you need a GitHub Classroom link as well, but not that one. I'm going to give you another one here. We got the rubric. Oh, no, where's the due date? Dates. Here we go. Nope, up here. December 16th, 6 p.m. Okay, let me just give you another Classroom link. Log in here. $24.54. That's $24.54. Final project. And if you'd like to work in pairs, you're welcome to work in pairs on this. Just let me know if one of you makes the repository. I can give both of you access to it. So if you'd like to partner up with somebody, you're welcome to do that. And then I'll just give you both access to it. The general rule of thumb is before you start, make sure you go and check this fetch button, click on fetch to see if there's anything new. And grab those changes first, make your changes, commit and push. And if you just coordinate with your partner, you're not working on the same file at the same time, you shouldn't have any issues. If you both touch the same file at the same time, it gets a little bit trickier, but not too bad. There's always ways to kind of get around that. Copy the link. Okay, that's the Classroom link. And we should be good. Oh, you're seeing the wrong screen here. Let me go back to duplicating here. Everyone in class can see the same screen here. Edit this one. All right, so our Twitter or Parler clone, again, I was having fun with when they got thrown off of AWS. What would it take to make your own? So we're going to make accounts and logins. Right? We went through a little bit of login with the PHP stuff. It's almost exactly the same. When we talk about databases next week, we'll look at that on the Java side of things. We don't need to do any emailing because, again, then you've got to put a username and password into your code, and we don't have time to talk about the good ways to do those. You should be able to follow and unfollow people, see the list of the newest tweets of those they do follow. And if you go to like a /username or question mark username, we can see the list of tweets for that user. And then you can follow that person from that page or not. If that name doesn't exist, just give them some generic, we can't find that user. You can like or unlike a tweet, and then a count of likes when we display the tweets. If you don't get to the asynchronous JavaScript for this, that's okay. We'll talk more about that near the end. So I know that kind of is like a last minute thing to add in. Not too big of a deal. And then I'll show you all about images next week as well. We'll look at how we can store an image in the database. It goes in as blob data. And then when you go to serve the image, you just have to give it the right tag and the content type. And you say, hey, here's a bunch of image data I'm going to throw at you so we can add images. So our tweets will be text and optional images as well. That's sort of the goal. So for the rubric here, for the 40 points, 10 points by category essentially. So user account creation and login, 10 points. So if there is no user login and you just, here's a bunch of tweets, I can make new tweets, but it's all one user, you lose 10 points out of the 40. So this is big. The user homepage lists the tweets of whose they follow, including the count of likes for each tweet. Right? So when I log in, I get everyone that I follow, all their tweets displayed in descending order. No crazy algorithm that tries to decide which is the fanciest tweet, most important tweet we should see. Just give me the most recent, please, right? Which works out really well for our database. When we do our query, we can just sort by the time it was posted. We can view individual user tweets and follow that user. So it's like the /user page or !user, like throw the user parameter in, who do I want to go follow? This one's probably easier. We haven't really got to a whole lot of the URL mapping to go to like a /username page. It's easy to do as a servlet. Doing it in PHP, it's not the worst thing in the world, just takes a little bit more finagling. That becomes its own page. But then you have to get like the URL out of that, which is a little bit harder. So easier in Java land, a little harder in PHP. So if you just do as a parameter, that's probably easiest. And then making your own tweet, including images, 10 points for that one. So if you just have a bunch of hard-coded tweets and you can't make new ones, again, you can still get points for the other pieces of the rubric here. But ideally, we're getting it all done. We've got a month. My goal is everyone gets it done, and it's something they can talk about and be a little bit proud about their final project here. So if you're stuck in anything, again, my rule of thumb, try for a good 30 minutes to an hour, finding a solution, trying the different things, making it work, and then reach out to me. I'm more than happy to get you unstuck on this project so that everyone can be successful. What that means, though, is you need to start before December 14th. Right? If you wait until 2 days before it's due, and I had someone do this last semester, and then they ended up cheating. They're like, oh, hey, I hadn't really started yet. Can you help me with this? It's like, this was like a conversation for 2 or 3 weeks ago, like on how you even get started. So do yourself a favor, do me a favor, start early. The closer we get to the due date, generally the busier I get in finals week. Again, so, kind of go through and plan accordingly. For our course schedule, the last, looking at ahead here, we're going to have time at the end of every week to work on this final project. So working with databases, again, most nights we don't use the entire time of me talking at you, because that would be super boring and everyone would fall asleep. So we'll have time this last week here. Ideally, you get it done, because this will be probably an hour and a half at most. So we got the rest of the course, rest of the class night to finish it. And ideally, you're done by 12/9, so that I know you have other classes and other final exams. You don't have to worry about this at all. If you can get it done by 12/9 and out the door, ready to present on 12/16, there's no stress. All we do in presentations is you pull it up, you say, hey, look, I can make a user. Hey, look, I can log in. Hey, I can follow somebody. Hey, I can post a tweet. Hey, they all show up. Like, you show those 5 things, kind of walk through the process, you get your points, and we're done and out the door. I get them graded that night. Okay? I might ask to see a little piece of code here or there, but you guys all submit that to me, and I can look at the code generally as you're presenting. And I can see if anything looks funky. But, so pretty is not the goal here. Functional is the goal. Take another class for pretty. And if you're interested in doing the game option, I'm happy to talk to you about the game option. That's on the table as well. So, all right, thoughts, questions, concerns? Yeah, the 16th, 6 p.m. for our class, Evhane. Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen now. Shoot. How about now? Nope. It should be on my display capture. Oh, I have to get rid of this other one here. Yeah, delete that. Just remove it. Remove second monitor. Okay. Sorry about that. I had a black screen. I'm a pro at this, right? So sharing the database, all you need to do is you can export out all the scripts, and that will take everything that's in your database and let them recreate it. It's a quick step to when you export as well, right, in that MySQL tool, it'll give you all of the data as well. So let me fire that up here. Let me take a peek at that. That's what I had done. I had done the export for the other project previously. So when you check this one out, start this one up. Stop NetBeans. 5080. Then you go to PHP MyAdmin. Come on. Let's load. And when you go to a database, you can export the whole thing, and it will include the data that's in it. So if you want to like work together, build it on one person's computer, you can do that. The individual rows of data aren't going to be shared unless you do another export and they just run those commands to insert it. That works, or just make your own tweets. I'm not sure how much you need to actually have the data behind the scenes aside from the tables. So if you go to your database and you click on it, there's an export option. So when you export that, you say, okay, give me all of it, just a custom format. You're good to go. In SQL. It gives you a little download file, and you open this guy up. And you'll see it'll make all the tables, have all the commands for making tables, and then it'll have even the inserts as well if you want to have that same starter data. That's cool too. I'm going to open the file. Oh, it's opening in a stupid tool, I think is probably the problem. So my downloads, just open it like in Notepad. Just edit this in Notepad. So you get all the tables that get created, and then you get all this insert data. So if you want, you can just give them the inserts if they wanted. Tables, here's all the purchases we did, right? That sort of thing. And you should be good to go. So if you have any trouble with that, let me know. I definitely can hop on and help you export any of that out that you need to if you're working together. Yeah, I thought I hid the source, but like it was sitting on top or something. Maybe I just had to reorder it, I think. I just deleted it. It was super fast to add again. I guess I had to resize it, but that's okay. All right, any other thoughts, questions, concerns? Folks feel all right? Okay, we got a month. We got more to do in Java land, working with databases and sessions and cookies, getting the login stuff working. We'll go through that over the next week or week, then Thanksgiving, then we come back in December and get that done. We should be in pretty good shape. All right, awesome. We got a little bit more time to get started on that. It's a little bit harder to start in Java, but you can start building out the classes if you want. Like, hey, what class represents a tweet? What class represents a user? That sort of thing. We can build all the classes for sure, and we can do the database mapping later. No, PHP or JSP. So I think JSP works out a little nicer. Just the debugging experience feels a little easier than trying to debug PHP code. So if you get stuck on something, right, the debug, if you're familiar with debugging Java, just stepping through seems a little bit nicer. Maybe I'm just biased because I've done more work with JSP and stuff, and not quite as much with PHP for like large projects. But both work. So like the first time we did it, almost everyone did PHP. The second time I had like a half and half mix because some people had more familiarity with Java. Yeah, they both can totally get the job done. So yeah, once we talk about databases, you'll see it's almost the same thing. There he goes. Yeah. Wow, that is super slow. Oh goodness, I opened it 3 times. Yeah, just close. All right, folks. If you got any questions, let me know. Reach out, Discord, email, text, and go from there. Anyone in person, we're welcome to hang out and get some work done on the project, or call tonight, and I'll go from there. Thanks, everybody.